Hello and welcome to Starting Points, where one thing leads to another. Last time I acknowledged a mistake that I'd made. Well, I don't acknowledge all the mistakes I make. And this was an oversight, though, of not giving credit to the writer of this fascinating book, Simple Animals. And so I started with that. John Stidworthy. He's worthy of being acknowledged. A lot of work, a lot of years of work went into gaining a knowledge to put together a book like this. I also showed in the book then some things at the end of the book, and those were about sea urchins and common sea stars and brittle stars and something which I'd always called starfish, but now people are moving more toward calling it, that's according to the most recent book, Helen Scales, calling it sea stars. And so that was great. And when I'd finished, I finished with showing a photograph and saying, these are sea squirts, and I don't know if you can see them. Well, when I viewed the video, I could see the squirting of the at least 5 different sea squirts there, and they often cluster a whole area. And because afterwards I read more about sea stars, I read more about oysters because of something I'm going to show you soon, and clams, and seemed like there was something else. Anyway, it may come to me. This book I mentioned only in the fact that it's so current, 2023, and has information on those creatures as well. Now, fishing was one of the other things that I wanted to make this about. But one thing's never just about one thing. One thing leads to another. And here's a book by Robert Bateman's work. It's called Natural Worlds. Robert Bateman spent a lot of time when he was young going into the Natural History Museum in Toronto and taking drawing classes with specimens, and being a birder, and put out some beautiful books of his artwork in time, and became well known and traveled. And so there have been about 4, 5 maybe compilations of his wonderful paintings, and he chose a fisherman, well, a fish, a mammal who is a fisher. This is not a fisher. This is a sea otter. A little confusing, isn't it? It's not even a sea otter. It's a river otter. And the river otters are been over many, many years. Their fur, their everything has made it possible for them to be catch fish to live. Now, I want to show some stories. One has old memories because I had a wonderful teacher in grade 7 and taught me for sort of half the day. And then in grade 9, she also taught some English classes, maybe even other grades. And I was in an English class with her, and she had us reading novels and talking about them, and we had book reports where I remember trying to add a little life to it, and I was going to be a book salesman. So I guess there was some premonition even then that so this book really was a powerful story and stuck in my mind a long time. So William Humphreys, My Moby Dick. Now, he's writing about trout fishing in the Berkshires, in a creek there, and it's in western Massachusetts. And the book's about 100 pages long, but very nicely told, his experiences. And later on, I got another book that he'd written called the Spawning Run, and enjoyed it as well. It was only about 80 pages. They're fast reads, but enjoyable writing about an interest that seemingly there's a lot of people interested in fly fishing and trout fishing, and it never resonated with me. My dad took me fishing one time, and we had a man in the boat with us, and he knew where to find fish, and he'd had this contraption he'd made with coat hangers with a bait on it, and then another one and another one, and so at different levels in the water there they were, and then he'd haul things up, and he might have a dozen or so fish. It didn't resonate with me. Well, we're all different. That's diversity. Thinking about trout fishing, though, reminded me of a story by Ernest Hemingway in this collection of short stories. And I read that nearly 55 years ago or more. The Big Two-Hearted River, Part 1. And there's a second part as well. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit of the book story by reading the first two paragraphs. Bear with me, hopefully. The train went on up the track out of sight, around one of the hills of burnt timber. Right away, little signals go on to me, burnt timber. Nick sat down on a bundle of canvas and bedding the baggage man had pitched out of the door of the baggage car. There was no town, nothing but the rails and burnt-over country. The 13 saloons that had lined the one street of Seney had not left a trace. The foundations of the Mansion House Hotel stuck up above the ground. The stone was chipped and split by the fire. It was all that was left of the town of Seney. Even the surface had been burned off the ground. Nick looked at the burnt-over stretch of hillside, where he'd expected to find the scattered houses of the town, and then walked down to the railroad track, to the bridge over the river. The river was there. It swirled against the log spouts of the bridge. Nick looked down into the clear brown water, colored from the pebbly bottom, and watched the trout keeping themselves steady in the current with wavering fins. As he watched them, they changed their positions by quick angles, only to hold steady in the fast water again. Nick watched them a long time. He goes on to, in part two and all, collecting grasshoppers, which he will use for his bait. Now, that's interesting process too. Anyway, this is Burning an Empire. It's was copyright 1943, so right in the middle of the Second World War, by Stuart H. Holbrook. And in it, he talks about fires that happened in places like upper Michigan, Wisconsin area, out west, Washington and Oregon and Maine. And so that's amazing incidents that, well, it's a detective story a bit too. And here's a natural history of the American lumberjack and a holy old Mackinaw. And it was written even earlier, 1938. It was published, that is. I'm sure he took long time at work on it. Daylight in the Swamp, the beginnings of sawdust, the flowering of a lumber town. And it's fascinating, whereas factual, as opposed to Paul Bunyan, who's fictional. So makes a nice companion book. Holy Old Mackinaw. Well, thanks for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.